Guten Morgen, meine AFAS-Members und Twitch-Watchers zum Alex Day, wo ihr einfach nur chillen könnt am Morgen oder falls ihr einen stressigen Tag gehabt habt, dann könnt ihr schön hier relaxen. Ja, am meisten, ich glaube, für mich persönlich ist das jetzt ein Chill morgen, weil ich bin vor einer Stunde aufgewacht. Und ja. Ja. Also ihr wisst wie immer, für eine halbe Stunde hören wir uns das schöne Lufiger an. Ja. Also irgendwie ist das, ich habe meinen Kopfhörer irgendein Problem. Keine Ahnung wieso. Jetzt ganz schön was anderes schauen, weil ich mag es, wenn es knispert. Oh, einen Moment. Ja. Ja. War schon hier? Ah, okay, das war das Richtige. Hört sich auch definitiv besser an. So. Hoffentlich wird das natürlich nicht wie vorhin so. Es hört sich genauso an wie vorhin. Nämlich sich ein bisschen so knuspert. Ja, also ich mache gerade aus einem ein bisschen was für den nächsten Aftertalk, alle meine Notizen schreiben. jetzt alles mir aufgeschrieben, alle meine Notizen aufgeschrieben. Also, ja. Ich werde noch immer wieder in Knuspern. Warum? Warum knusperst du? Ich mag es nicht, wenn es knuspert. Ja. Ich hoffe aber, dass ihr hattet eine schöne Woche. Für mich war das eine sehr interessante Woche. Also einmal mit, also wie immer, Minecraft-Stream am Dienstag, am Donnerstag Arthur's Day, am Freitag jetzt How to German mit Standard und gestern der Editing-Stream. Obwohl, da möchte ich auch sagen, ich frage mich noch immer, wieso mein Computer irgendwie das so richtig gehackt hat. Ich hoffe, ich werde irgendwann das loswerden, sodass er irgendwann, dass ich wirklich einen Editing-Stream machen kann, ohne dass irgendwas, ohne dass der meckert, hey, nein. Also, dass er wirklich einfach sagt, okay, möchte ich das editieren? Okay, hier bitte. Und ich habe ja gestern mit ein paar Leuten, weil ich nach dem Stream in VR-Chat habe da zusammen ein bisschen UNO gespielt, dann Murder 4 und dann wieder UNO. Und beim zweiten UNO spielen, da bin ich leider eingepennt. Also für die Leute, die gestern dabei waren, warum ich nicht weitergemacht habe oder so. Mein Körper hat gesagt, ja, es ist Zeit so. Und ja, ich bin dann heute um 2 Uhr kurz aufgewacht. Hab dann gesehen, oh, ich war alleine. Warum? Naja, wie es aussieht, waren die anderen, da sind die pennen gegangen und sind woanders hingegangen. Und ich war alleine. Und dann habe ich einfach gesagt, ja, okay. Ich werde dann auch pennen gehen. Irgendwie wird das auch irgendwie zu einer Routine, dass das am Abend dann ein bisschen VR-Chat spielen. Ja, ich glaube, ich werde aber nicht so oft das machen, weil erstens mein Körper hält das nicht so lange aus und ja, meine Schlafantacken. Also ja. Und das war jetzt ein bisschen. Anyway. So. Ich glaube, wir müssen ja jetzt was anderes machen. Also, und schon. Ja. Obwohl ich bei einem muss ich sagen. Random Video. Oh. Okay, Fortnite. Aber ich bin mehr interessiert über das hier. Ja, 7 plus. Money. You don't have much time. I. The same thing happened to what?
Hello, Internet. Welcome to
Same thing happened to who?
the show that's always vying to be best girl. Last episode, we went
Don't.
through all the new features of Doki Doki Literature Club Plus and began
Yep.
to unravel the mystery of the new company, Metaverse Enterprises. By looking at emails, hidden files, and the new side stories, we learned that not only was Doki Doki Literature Club a simulation created by Team Salvato, but that their universe, and by proxy our universe, may itself be a simulation in the world of these games. The biggest twist of all, though, came at the very end when we found clues suggesting that Monica had broken free from the game, ascending out of the simulation and inhabiting the body of Senior Engineer.
Ich möchte da nur kurz anmerken, ich habe mit Haru darüber geredet und laut ihm ist das, möchten wir hier nicht nochmal hier Five Nights at Freddy's haben, sondern eher so, ja, sie hat einfach Monika hat nicht seinen Körper eingenommen, sondern eher seinen Account. Also das Wodrich Monika als Eve Lester, also Eve Lester, arbeitet in der virtuellen Welt, während er natürlich einfach keine Ahnung hat.
So already that was a lot, but there was still one major thing that we didn't have time to talk about, and that was Virtual Machine 2, otherwise known as VM2, or perhaps most infamously of all,
Side stories.
This is something that we theorized about extensively back in the original 2017 theory, which if you haven't watched, I highly recommend you go back to.
Yep, ich auch.
One of my favorite episodes we've ever done ever. They actually won us the Streamy Award for editing.
Am meisten muss ich auch hier kurz sagen, diese zwei Videos wurden mir so oft empfohlen. Einfach nur, weil einfach, hey Roman, du machst doch Highlight-Videos über die DLC. Hier hast du die zwei Videos, die du schon einmal angeschaut hast, noch einmal. Für die nächsten 2 Jahre.
Back in 2017. But outside of marveling at the amazing
award-winning editing,
also information that's going to be helpful for everything that we're going to talk about today. Anyway, just to refresh you on the essentials so we're all on the same page. If you pursue Yuri as your romantic partner in the main game of Doki Doki, she describes the plot of the book that she's reading, The Portrait of Markov, a book with an eye symbol on the front cover. In the first act, Yuri makes it sound relatively innocent. Quote, basically it's about this girl in high school who moves in with her long-lost younger sister, but as soon as she does so, her life gets really strange. She gets targeted by these people who escaped from a human experiment prison, and while her life is in danger, she needs to desperately choose who to trust. In the second act, she gives us even more information. Basically, it's about this religious camp that was turned into a human experiment prison. All the people trapped there have this trait that turns them into killing machines that lust for blood, but the facility gets even worse. They start selectively breeding people by cutting off their limbs and affixing them to, and then she cuts off. Great date conversation there, Yuri. 10 out of 10. Would date again. Through a series of messages in the original game, we learned that the name of these human experiments was Project Libitina, and that the goal was to unlock something called a patient's third eye. The name itself, Libitina, appeared to be a reference to the names of one of the original test subjects, who, based on details from a medical spreadsheet found at ProjectLibitina.com, seemed to most closely match the physical details of Yuri herself.
Actually, what? Noch die Seite? Project. Natürlich nicht. Oh, es existiert noch immer. Ha! Last updated. December. This feels all previous object nodes have been erased permanently. Reducing bias doing nothing as a result of personal attachment to the subject will henceforth. Okay. The following questionable behaviors have been known and should be ignored in further twitching, vocal text, hiding a fear, vomiting, swimming, harm to eczema, harm to yourself, misplaced laughter. Any self-harm attempts must be interrupted immediately. Sexual response test is bypassed during pubescence. Requested bypassing the following test: third eye activation test, third eye suppression test. Request denied. Tina is not yet recovered from the termination of blah blah blah. It is not expected to do so in the near future. Continuing to administer the tests will only accelerate the deterioration of Libitina self. You're choosing to avoid the measures necessary to prevent a repeat. There we go. Doctor, will you not have as much faith in your personal as you do in your own God? Huh. Hmm.
Amongst all the documents, there were also references to a sick and suffering girl named Alyssa, as well as to an antagonistic character who seemed to be either a priest or a doctor named Renier. Ultimately, we concluded that this was leading to the next game in the series, where we, or Monica disguised as someone, or whatever, would be tasked with saving the Doki Doki girls from these horrific experiments. Which brings us to today, 4 years later, and 4 years wiser, with a brand new series of clues hidden throughout DDLC+. So, let's just start with the basic facts. What does this new game tell us explicitly about Virtual Machine 2? Well, in the file Project Plan Outline, it's explicitly called out that VM1 is a small-scale project, a test case. The second, Virtual Machine 2, is designed to be a medium-scale simulation. And this lines up with what we already know. Doki Doki takes place essentially in a single classroom, small-scale, whereas the Portrait of Markov is all about a religious medical facility, which would lend itself to having many more rooms and locations, probably a 3D environment. We also know, based on other documents, that Monica can indeed see her friends being tortured over in VM2. This is based on her monologue hidden in the original game, as well as from an email from Ravi in DDLC+. Quote, "My best guess is that the memory being freed from VM2 isn't getting zeroed out, which technically gives VM1 access to it." From there, most of the information about VM2 that we get is from project manager Paula, when she emails the rest of Team Salvato to discuss their plans moving forward. They intend to move away from VM1 and instead try to create stable access to VM2. Team Salvato's moving away from focusing on Doki Doki and instead working on this new game, Project Libitina. But so far, making a connection into this new virtual machine is something they've been unable to do. Paula seems to believe that they can build a connection into this new world thanks to an experiment that the simulation itself is running. Quote, "I have an idea on how to increase connection stability to VM2. I'll go into detail in a more formal report, but some of the log files indicate attempts of theirs to pull together the access potential of multiple individuals into a single parallel unit. It sounds ridiculous, but if they actually get somewhere with it, then we might have a solid entry point that doesn't heavily intrude upon the VM. The VM will just be named Test VM for now, although the parallel access unit they're building is called Project Libitina." And there it is, ladies and gentlemen, Project Libitina in the flesh. Kinda, and there's a lot of flesh involved. Now, if you're a bit confused about what all of that means, hang on, we're about to break this wide open. You see, once you collect 100% of DDLC Plus's files, you unlock the final reward, Test VM, Paula's new name for Virtual Machine 2, the one that houses Libitina, which means that finally, after all the years of teasing and theorizing, we get our first glimpses into the world, and it's a bunch of text. It's a text doc. We're welcomed by a black screen that shows us trying to connect to VM2. Remember, they still haven't come up with a stable connection to this world, which is why most of the text appears as random symbols. However, each time you boot things up, you see a fraction of text before losing the connection. Sometimes you're lucky enough to get a full sentence, other times it's just half a sentence, or two halves of different sentences. After hundreds and hundreds of reboots, online DLC fans have collected all the pieces of text, and well, it's pretty random. It's kind of like assembling a bunch of dinosaur bone fragments. Some pieces fit cleanly into cohesive sentences, others are kind of guesses to where they go, and still others you have no idea what to do with. But after going through each and every line, I think there's enough here to give us a deeper understanding.
Ich glaube, ich werde das nicht machen, by the way.
Project Libitina and VM2's simulated world. Let's take a look. Right off the bat, it becomes clear that there are 3 very distinct writing styles present in the text that Test VM spits out at us. One that appears to be heavily religious, one that's entirely scientific, and a third that's rooted in science but seems to be a bit warmer or more personal. We know.
So say Yuri, and Natsuki.
That this game is big on writing styles and grammar, and so the way that these sentences are worded to me indicates that we aren't just reading text from one person, but instead are reading from 3 different sources. First, the religious writing, probably from a priest-like character. We learned from Yuri in the original DDLC that this was a religious camp that turned into a human experiment prison. We also know that God clearly plays some part of Project Libitina thanks to the testing file at projectlibitina.com. Quote, "You do not have as much faith in your personnel as you do in your God." So we've guessed for a while while that Project Libitina has religious roots, but what they're worshipping and what their goals are is made more clear from the decoded messages in Test VM. Gradual changes to the scripture class curriculum to incorporate an angel in mortal skin. She will walk the path to ascension and we will follow. We'll ascend and bring salvation to all. May the third eye can only assume that even obstacles or failures are all part of the great plan, even if beyond my comprehension. Should seek purpose. Purpose ignites a will to live, a will to suffer for have died, so that those most worthy will be able to ascend. That first line confirms the idea that this is some kind of religious camp. There's a curriculum. People are being taught, which is often a part of cult life, allowing them to essentially brainwash the victims. The writer also has some level of awareness that the world they're in is not all there is. There's a push towards ascension. Wait, I thought we were done with Kanye Quest. In seriousness, this religion-turned cult seems to sense that there's something above, a higher power, that an angel or chosen one will be able to lead them to a higher state of being. Little do they suspect that it's actually a bunch of sweaty computer programmers watching their every move in a series of cubicles. Whoopsie! But what's really interesting is how they speak about the third eye. Yep, that old chestnut is back, and it's back in a big way. The one line that we've seen so far feels reminiscent of the Christians saying, "The Lord be with you, and also with you." It's a sort of greeting, or something that you just say to other members of your belief system. Here it seems to be, may the third eye guide you, help you, save you, all possibilities, but it's clear that the third eye is a religious symbol and a foundation of the faith. The third eye appears to be something that a few are blessed with, but is clearly the key to the ascension that the writer desires. Lastly, we have confirmation that the writer knows about all the deaths that are happening in the cult. His line about people dying so that the others who are worthy can ascend shows that he believes that all of these sacrifices are worth it. So could this priest also be the doctor that we learned about in the test notes from the first game? Quote from there, Libitina has not yet recovered from the termination of XXXXX and is not expected to do so in the near future. You are choosing to avoid the measures necessary to prevent a repeat scenario, Doctor. Will you not have as much faith in your personnel as you do in your God? Makes sense, right? Willingly testing and killing patients, believing them to not be worthy in the pursuit of the perfect specimen that'll help them achieve the goal of ascension, an angel in mortal skin. My theory is that this mystery character, this priest/doctor doing all this writing, is Renier, the guy that we heard about from the redacted poem found in the original DDLC. In that redacted poem, we see the writer describe Renier's information to be a complete and utter lie.
Wait, what?
However, Renier himself seems convinced of his methods and is associated with screams of
Nothing is real?
Renier and this first character in Test VM seem to believe that their sacrifices are worth it. That in order to ascend to a higher plane, you gotta crack a few eggs. Or, you know, in actuality, selectively breed a bunch of children, sever a bunch of body parts, assemble it all into a giant psychic machine so you can reach your greater computer program. That is as reductive as I can make this whole situation. The next group of texts that I want to show gives us a far deeper, more detailed understanding of what exactly is going on inside Libitina. Indicates only 80% or less of nutrients and medical supplements are needed to keep the body alive, compared to the non-amputated control. Meters in parameters, so that a 0.5 meter gap between each body will... Due to the factual style of the writing, as well as the use of measurements and percentages, this text seems to be a research report. And it reaffirms what Yuri was talking about in Portrait of Markov, cutting off limbs and putting them all together for some purpose. And now we understand. It seems like they're combining body parts of those with strong third eye potential in order to ascend, to reach that higher plane of existence. To them, they're pulling their resources to reach out to their god, their creator, but we know better. They're not wrong about reaching out to their creator, but he ain't some dude hanging out in the clouds. He's a bunch of people chatting it up over Discord. And we already know that for as disgusting and horrible as their techniques are, it's also kind of working. Their experiment will indeed allow Team Salvato to reach back out to them. Think back to what Paula said in her email. I have an idea on how to increase connection stability. Some of the log files indicate attempts of theirs to pull together the access potential of multiple individuals into a single parallel unit. One angel blessed with the ability to communicate with God. The rest of the text from this section is really dark. Quote, all have functional reproductive systems. Then we could produce new, potent children with incredible efficiency. And sudden death would be at 9 months each, a total of...
In short, what this video is about, it's basically DDLC plus Fury by Game Fury. And it should identify how this, just about this game in general in the world. Also, excuse me for a second. I need to I have to talk with something. So wait a moment. And I'm back.
Of 36 would reach peak efficiency, with about 1 week per. By age 5, children testing above the threshold will be transferred to Wing A, while all are speculated to improve third eye potency by puberty. The new children are generally obedient, but with the introduction of more unpleasant activities, we should consider tests focusing on each of these emotional responses to determine which adulthood to receive professional training in. They are actively breeding children to have greater third eye potential, being raised in a facility, and eventually being subject to experiments, or what is probably better described as torture, in order for them to open their third eyes. It's legitimately very scary and very disturbing. If I were to guess, it's here where Sayori, Yuri, and Natsuki fit into the story. They're children that were
Natsuki.
raised as part of that selective breeding child grooming experiment, and it'll be our job in this new game to figure out who is who and help them to wake up. As Monica said in her final monologue, they should, if they remember their time with me in the other worlds, they should remember what I tell them. And now we get to what I think is the most interesting part of the test VM. This last source seems different. It's still scientific, but it's personal too. Asking and responding to questions, discussing personal opinion and hypotheses rather than just laying out discoveries. I believe this character is a high-ranking scientist working at the facility of Project Libitina. Here, I'll let it speak for itself. Beyond the eyes of the public, decades of favorable reputation don't have a third eye struggle to understand what current science tells them. I am disregarding the only prison is our material world. The gate of the Nexus extends beyond any comprehension of the material world. Name implies death, but of what? Only the material self. Our mission to become free of the material self is distanced from the religion which the Academy was once known to practice. Religion requires faith. This is undeniable truth. The observable changes in physical appearance, however small, already prove this to be more than the usual spiritual nonsense. Now this tells us a lot. The religion is called the Academy, but clearly things have changed in recent times. We're seeing, through the eyes of this character, the transformation of the Academy from an entirely religious venture to a scientific experiment. This view, however, is not accepted by the public. Again, as we read, it's implied that years of reputation have been washed away by their belief in the potential of the third eye, and that those with third eye potential do seem to have some subtle physical difference from normal humans. These lines of text also tell us that the ascension that they're trying to reach, our world, is called the Nexus in their world. And there's even more text coming from this individual, all about a mysterious new figure. Has become an increasingly scientific endeavor thanks to absolute genius and has made incredible contributions to Project Libitina, despite having no third, have given him the title of Guardian to reflect. This implies that our writer does indeed have a third eye, and that those without third eye potential are seen as lower class. However, this mystery person that the text mentions, this Guardian, has helped a lot despite not having a third eye. Again, I think that this is them talking about Renier. Renier seems to be our main antagonist in this new story, the one who created the third eye theories in the first place and the quote-unquote science to test it all out. But there is still one question left unanswered. Where does Monica fit into all this? She's been established to have a connection with VM2, able to see the horrors that await them because she shares memory with someone inside that virtual machine, but so far I've only mentioned Sayori, Yuri, and Natsuki. Well, I purposely didn't group Monica together with the other three girls for a specific reason. I don't believe Monica is part of Project Libitina like the others are. Instead, Monica is a nurse. The same nurse, in fact, that wrote the redacted poem that ends up in DDLC. Think about it. A nurse would have access to all the girls, the facility, the areas that she might need to go to in order to save them. But also, that redacted text in the poem leaves the words, "nothing is real," implying that it's been messed with by Monica to let you know that she knows about the simulation. But the real kicker goes all the way back to Paula's email, "Let's move on." We established in the last email that monitor kernel access is how Monica got her name. It also refers to her level of elevated access in DDLC. Well, in the next paragraph, Paula states, quote, "I'm gonna spin up a read-only hypervisor that we can use to test different ideas like this. The elevation level will be set to monitor adjacent runtime level access. MARLA, Marla, the name of our nurse, and it's the name of Virtual Machine 2's Monica variant. That runtime level access, by the way, is important. It means that in this game, this version of Monica isn't going to be all-knowing or all-powerful. She's just a nurse that's scared for these girls. And although she might not know the bigger picture, our Monica does. The one
I know it's complicated.
And remember, she's
but interesting.
Inside the body of Ive Laster. Two one inside the game, one outside the game. This is even hinted at by another line of text from the scientist in the test VM. But my third eye.
Oh, good. Well, good. That's still nothing I can come up with.
Shows me two of them. I can't make sense sense of. So now that DDLC Plus has introduced the metaverse, I think this new game, whatever they decide to call it, has a couple options open for how it might end up playing. First, we might be jumping in and out of the game, using Marla's runtime level access to help Sayori, Yuri, and Natsuki inside the new simulation Project Libitina, while using the metaverse desktop to edit, move, and delete files and computer settings with the help of DDLC's Monica posing as Ive, even allowing the girls to escape the simulation entirely, just like Monica did. Or there's option 2. Maybe it'll be a perfectly normal game on the surface where you'll have to socially engineer your way to figuring out who is who in these new skins and how to earn their trust without tipping the scales or scaring them away to tell the authorities. Or maybe there's option 3. It's a normal game that shatters into something completely different when you name a character Monica, Yuri, Natsuki, and Sayori. Who knows? There are just lots of different directions to take the idea. Just be on the lookout for any games about human experiments, angels, ascension, or people named Marla. Those will be our first clue. But hey, that's just a theory. A game theory.
Thanks for watching. Oh boy, that is interesting. And also Fortnite.
People wait 8 hours for Disneyland tickets. Tickets sold out for months. Disney Plus winning in the streaming wars. Solidly number 2 in the streaming wars. Passes 100 million subscribers.
That is so interesting.
Disney stock surges. You thought a little virus could slow me down? It just made them all hungry for more. More of me. I own everything. Everything.
Well, the mouse didn't expect that, probably.
You don't own me, Mickey, but I definitely have a hold on you. Dance, mouse, dance.
I don't understand.
You will, mouse.
What the fish? The fish? What the fish? That is some hole.
Welcome to Game Theory. The show at 10 years old isn't old enough to drive, but is probably still older than most of the kids playing Fortnite. Speaking of being old, a quick here for our sponsor, Rocket Mortgage, and our appearance over on their Rocket Learn It Means to Home. And after learn more, a whole flossing phenomenon Fortnite. Now, if you'll remember last August when everyone was talking about Fortnite was pulling a move to try and avoid a 30% payment fee for V-Buck purchases, we did a video over here on the channel covering how everyone was missing the real story. That Epic's biggest plan was to create their own competing app store to compete directly against the Apple App Store and the Google Play Store. This shouldn't have been some obscure piece of hidden information either. It was right there in the legal documents that anyone could read, but apparently did not read. Our main point in that episode, though, was that if you hear the word Epic and all you think of is Fortnite, well, you're actually missing the biggest picture of them all. Remember, Fortnite Battle Royale came out a mere 4 years ago, which, when you think of it, feels like a lot longer. Man, the last 2 years have just vanished from my mind. Anyway, Epic is a company with a history dating all the way back to 1991, and this whole missing the epic forest for the Fortnite trees seems to be a much bigger trend as it relates to the company. People keep underestimating them and missing how powerful they really are, because Epic doesn't just have the splashiest headline
Unreal Engine
come out in recent history. Oh no, they have a much bigger, much more powerful secret weapon that everyone just overlooks. One that allows them to control not just games, but entire other industries. A weapon with an unreal amount of power that we're all aware of, but don't really give a second thought.
The Unreal Engine.
Unreal secret weapon is, well, the Unreal Game Engine. Maybe the reason that people don't really talk about this thing is that they don't exactly understand it. I mean, I could tell you that the Unreal Engine is what powers a huge percentage of games as diverse and wide-ranging as Hello Neighbor and PUBG to Mass Effect, Dragon Ball FighterZ, Tetris Effect, and even the Nintendo Switch's Yoshi's Crafted World. Even Nintendo, who is notorious for sticking to their own proprietary tools, has built games using Unreal's engine. There are hundreds upon hundreds of other titles, all built using the Unreal Engine by companies other than Epic. So what does it all really mean? What exactly is a game engine? And how is it allowing Epic Games to infiltrate industries other than gaming? Well, that's a question that's best answered by looking at the history of Epic Games itself. I think we're all
Wait,
familiar
what?
with Doom, which basically spawned the first-person shooter genre back in 1993. It
Wait.
wasn't the first FPS. Wolfenstein 3D came out a year earlier in 1992, but
Yeah.
Doom basically ignited the genre to the point that for years, any other shooting game that involved walking down in a first-person perspective was called a Doom clone. One such clone that began development during the 90s was a game called Unreal, created by none other than Epic Games. Though at the time, they had the totally tubular company name Epic Mega Games. Epic's founder, Tim Sweeney, saw the success of 1993's Doom and 94's Doom 2 and realized that it would be hard to compete. Unreal's development didn't start until 1995. He would be stuck playing catch-up forever. So instead, he had an idea. You see, the development of Doom 2 looked a lot like the development of Doom 1. Large portions of the sequel were being built from scratch. Even though they were creating a sequel to an existing game, in a lot of ways the development process looked like they were reinventing the wheel. But what if it was possible to create not just a standalone game, but rather a framework that could be used to create a series of games? True, it would take longer for the first game in the series to come out, but creating a tool set and a framework that could be used to create multiple games meant that they could spit out sequels faster, and that would be their advantage. So, true to his plan, Epic created the first-person shooter game Unreal, which came out in 1998. And yes, this is an actual PC game screenshot, as we've been told on the cover of Next Generation magazine. I joke about it now, but in all seriousness, Unreal was pretty mind-blowing graphically at the time. So confident in its graphics that it came with a box complete with a window to show off a screenshot of the game. PC Master Race looked a whole lot different back then. Anyway, in the process, Epic Mega Games also created the Unreal Engine, a toolset that makes it easier to create video games. It wasn't the first game engine by any means, but when it was capable of making games that looked like this, it quickly became one of the most popular, with other game companies asking to borrow it, or, you know, pay to use it. 19 games in total were built using that first generation Unreal Engine, but it was enough to prove the existence of a brand new business model. Sure, Epic was still making their own games during that time, most notably the Gears of War series, but why make the games yourself when you can make the tools that everyone else uses to make the games? They were making more profit from the game engine than the games that they were making, which is probably why they were willing to sell the Gears of War IP to Microsoft in 2014. So what, I hear you asking? Epic earns bank licensing a tool that makes creating video games easier. What's the big deal? Well, you see, that's the thinking that everyone falls into, which is why Epic is so vastly underestimated. Yeah, they're known for making games, but the Unreal Engine is so much more than that. Remember The Mandalorian, aka the reason you started a Disney Plus subscription a year ago and you still haven't gotten around to canceling yet? Almost none of that show was shot using practical effects. Almost the entire show was shot on a soundstage in Manhattan Beach, with the vivid and memorable settings all being computer generated. Now, that alone is no big surprise. After all, green screen is nothing new. Star Wars has been shooting on a green screen ever since The Phantom Menace back in the 90s. But what's different is that the world of The Mandalorian was created using the Unreal Engine. Director Jon Favreau had access to the virtual set in real time. He could look at the virtual set to plan shots, rather than having to shoot everything against a green screen and not have a clear idea of how it's going to turn out after the computer animators get to it. Unreal renderings can be projected onto backgrounds in real time. So, say for instance a superhero's battling against a CGI monster. In the olden days, actors would pretend to fight whatever is eventually edited onto the green screen. The Unreal Engine, however, allows studios to project a near movie-ready monster on screen for the actors to see and interact with. That in turn is going to cut down on production funds, editing time, costs. Heck, you can shoot the whole movie in one big green room. And with more and more movies being less and less real and more like video games, the power of Epic's Unreal Engine in the movie business becomes dominant. And that's not all. The application of game engines goes beyond media and entertainment. There are virtual realty. Yeah, I said that right. Virtual realty, as in realtors, people who sell houses, who make use of virtual reality headsets to give people the experience of what it's like to stand in a home without actually having to go and stand in that home. But those virtual reality simulations of houses have to be built somehow, and they're built using the same types of game engines that virtual reality games are built in. ZipView, for instance, is a real estate company that allows you to tour virtual versions of houses powered by, you guessed it, the Unreal Engine. I mean, think about it. If you're trying to create a virtual house tour, you need to have something that can provide realistic rendering in real time as you walk around immersed immersed in a virtual space, even taking into account things like how the light will shine through a window or what a room will look like during different times of day. These are all things that are novel in the world of VR house tours, but they're all things that video games have been offering for well over a decade, which makes a game developer tool like the Unreal Engine the ideal place to build a virtual house tour. Did that example seem too small and specific for you? Okay, how about this? The US military uses simulation tools that were built using the Unreal Engine. Again, simulations of a bunch of virtual soldiers running around on a battlefield shooting at each other is kind of the thing that a lot of game engines
looks like a game, by the way.
The US military simulations just happen to be more realistic than your typical COD match. Oh my god! Now, an obvious question to this might be, if creating a game engine is such good business, why hasn't someone else stepped in to create the competitor? I mean, surely Epic's Unreal Engine can't be the only game in town. Game engine in town, I guess. Well, as it turns out, there is one big competitor to Unreal, which is Unity. And I really do mean one big competitor. Nothing else even comes close. Unity is widely used for mobile games, including some pretty heavy hitters like Pokemon Go and Hearthstone, as well as a wide variety of indie games like Ben and the Ink Machine, Hollow Knight, The Outer Wilds, just to name a few that you might be
DLC Plus.
familiar with. But when it comes to games that are really pushing the graphical limits of PC and console hardware, Unity's presence is a lot smaller. That being said, Unity, like Unreal, is making a big splash in the movie-making world. Remember that live-action Lion King reboot, which is totally not live-action at all and just computer-generated? Well, it's computer-generated using tools from Unity. Yeah, Disney raked in $1.3 billion at the box office with a movie made using some of the same tools as Bendy and the Ink Machine. So Unreal isn't the only game engine out there making waves outside of the game industry, but it doesn't have much competition apart from Unity. In fact, Unreal and Unity kind of have what you call a duopoly in the game market, a situation where two companies, as in a duo of companies, hold all the market share, sort of like Android and iPhone, as opposed to a monopoly where one company holds all the market share. But if creating a game engine is such big business, then why don't more companies do it? One word: money. It's expensive. Part of the reason other companies started licensing the Unreal Engine as early as 1996 and continue to use modern versions of the Unreal Engine to this day is so they don't have to invest in building that technology themselves. Epic's own Tim Sweeney says, quote, "The cost of building an engine now is hundreds of millions of dollars, representing the work of hundreds of people for many years. You can't build an engine that's just good for one type of game anymore. The economics don't work." And he's not wrong. EA tried to use their own proprietary engine, the Frostbite engine that powers games like Battlefield and FIFA, to make Mass Effect Andromeda, and, well, we see how well that worked out for him.
This What is happening there? She must be constipated.
Even the biggest game companies in the world are often reliant on licensed game engines. Consider Riot, creator of League of Legends, a game that's generated over $20 billion in revenue. Surely they would have the resources to create their own game engine in-house if they wanted. But when it came time to create their new game Valorant, they relied on Epic's Unreal Engine. The economics just made more sense. And what are those economics, you ask? What could they possibly be charging for this incredibly valuable service? $0. For real, that is the amount of money that you pay to Epic up front until the point that your game hits $1 million in sales. After that, you pay Epic a 5% royalty, unless of course you distribute your game on the Epic Game Store, in which case that gets waived. And if you're a small indie developer who hits $1 million in sales, you pay nothing. I bring all of this up to make a point. Epic has the world's premier game engine, and rather than choosing to prioritize short-term profit by charging everyone to use it, they're trying to get it into the hands of as many developers as possible. It's the same thing that Google did with Gmail, and Google Search, and Google Chrome. Free services that are reliable and work well, getting into the hands of as many people as possible so that you become the industry standard. And once you're ubiquitous and largely free, you earn money by leveraging your massive user base, marketing other products, advertising, and more. And because you're free and first to market, it's hard for new competitors to cut in and turn a profit in a reasonable amount of time. So there you have it, friends. Epic's Unreal Advantage. It may be talked about as just a game engine, but it's a tool that is single-handedly taking over our increasingly digital world. It's weird to think that just a decade or two ago, gaming was dismissed as a niche hobby for kids, but now gaming technology is literally powering the world, be it our movies, our military, or even allowing us to virtually tour our future homes. And let me tell you, those virtual tours are important. In the aftermath of COVID, working from home has become the new normal for many of us. Working from home, not just for YouTubers anymore, but taken from Steph and I, it is not all business on top, sweatpants, or less down below. Maintaining sanity while working from home can be hard, especially if your physical space isn't set up to help your mental space. And that's true whether you're talking about an apartment, a condo, or a home. We've been through it all. So if you're interested in how you can set up your home for long-term success and sanity, we shared our best strategies.
Okay. I'll leave this. Oh no. No.
Celebrate the
This one and then
with savings.
Then a little
Like
break,
this
okay?
honey glaze and
Oh.
be a great 2020.
Theorists, I don't think we're in Kansas anymore. Welcome to Food Theory, the show that's like the tomatoes to your sauce. You are the sauce, and all its tomatoes.
What the fish?
This is gonna be a weird one. Today, we're gonna start
Yes.
our exploration into the wild world
Omega
of
Mart.
Omega Mart. Maybe I should say worlds of Omega Mart, but I'm getting ahead of myself. For months, you guys have been asking me for an Omega Mart episode. It's not hard to understand why. It combines the food industry and creepy lore. Heck, there's even an ongoing ARG that unlocks more lore as things get solved. It is like a Theorist channel trifecta. But there I go, getting ahead of myself again, because before I go any further, I should really address the most fundamental question of all.
Hey, what's Omega Mart?
Huh? Omega Mart? What's Omega Mart?
Yeah, what is Omega Mart?
What's with all the questions? Howdy, I'm Willie Nelson. Omega Mart is just a totally normal supermarket in Las Vegas, and I'm a celebrity you can trust. Omega
of
Mart
course.
has all the under-refrigerated dairy you need, and all the organically recommended produce you want. It's like we always say. Omega Mart, you have no idea what's in store for you. Just off I-15 in Las Vegas, next to the Big Gorilla. Tickets on sale now.
Thanks for clearing that up, celebrity endorsement Willie Nelson, but you know, you skipped a few details in there, like the glitching face swaps, the difficult spills that appear to rip a hole in the fabric of space-time, and how to win that darn Butter Frenzy 2 claw machine.
Wait, what? You got
Seriously though, the mysterious...
Excuse me, wait, you get butter by playing a crane game? I mean, that's genius! Not gonna lie.
Is very much the point, as they like to constantly remind us.
What's in store for you?
So the goal of today's episode will be to get a little sense of what's in store for us. Because as you're about to see, there is a lot of lore here. And most of it is hidden not in commercials or videos or websites like we're used to, but at the actual store. You heard that right, Willie Nelson wasn't yanking your chain when he said it was off the I-15 in Las Vegas next to the Big Gorilla. Omega Mart is a real physical supermarket where you actually explore, shop, and give your life essence to the eternal corporate overlords feasting on a fountain of cosmic energy. Oh, and I'm about to go there. In fact, I need to go there in the hopes of finding every bit of lore that's tucked away in every product, every aisle, every twisted soda refrigerator warping you to an alternate alien world. Because Meow Wolf, the creators behind it all, have made it clear that there are entire Omega Mart storylines that haven't been discovered yet. And until fans manage to unlock them, those storylines will never see the light of day.
Right now, there's like a locked gate that's keeping people away from that material. And so, but at some point, we hope that people will unlock it. You know, we can open up a new chapter of the story.
I mean, come on, how cool would that be? I'm definitely putting Unlock Omega Mart storyline on the old bucket list, right under that Hot Ones guest appearance, which I am still waiting on, Sean Evans. So here we go, theorists. Today we begin figuring out the secrets hidden inside the aisles of Omega Mart.
What's our secret? It's you!
Something tells me it might be a bit more than me, but thank you. Anyway, I am very special. Now, most of the theorists watching who requested we cover Omega Mart know it from its online commercials.
This week at Omega Mart, save on gestating mammal liquid, just $4.75. That's good news for my brittle bones. That's Omega Mart. Some customers have confused Omega Mart lemons with lemons. For that, we're sorry. Please return this product to Omega Mart immediately. or for assistance, please call the number on your screen.
And admittedly, there are dozens of Omega Mart commercials and corporate videos spread all across the internet. Multiple different channels, websites, you name it, and Omega Mart is there. But as I mentioned before, the star of the show and the main point of focus is the actual physical location. Omega Mart is the creation of a group named Meow Wolf, an arts and entertainment group based out of Santa Fe, New Mexico. Since 2008, Meow Wolf, by the way, the group's name came from pulling 2 random words out of a hat. How cool is that? Anyway, since 2008, Meow Wolf has been creating interactive and immersive experiences which have just gotten steadily bigger and more legit over the years.
We did the first Omega Mart in 2009.
Welcome to Omega Mart, valued customer.
And it was pretty much like a glorified indoor yard sale. A few years later, in 2012, we rented a space and we just sent all these press releases out that said Omega Mart comes to Santa Fe. People thought it was a real store. Like, we'd have to tell them, oh, I'm sorry, like, this is not a real grocery store.
But then, following the success of their Santa Fe-based installation House of Eternal Return, which looks like it also deserves its own theory, come to think of it, Meow Wolf took a third crack at Omega Mart in 2020. This time, it's a permanent store in Las Vegas located at Area 51. Sorry, what was that? Sorry. Yeah, makes sense. Sorry, Area 15, not Area 51. Kind of glad, too, because I'm not warmed up enough to do a Naruto run today. Now, when I say store in Las Vegas, that is the understatement of the year. I mean, first, you've got the store itself, filled with all sorts of actually purchasable products that are, well, they're all just a tad bit off. Often it feels like Omega Mart is run by aliens or machines who can't quite seem to get the whole supermarket thing quite right. Cans of sop form a pyramid in the middle of the store, the chicken is all heavily tattooed, and nothing says refreshing quite like a tall, cool glass of vegan goat pus. Might I recommend a side of leg to go with it? Point is, the sheer number of supermarket items that Meow Wolf and its collaborating artists have designed and manufactured for Omega Mart is staggering in and of itself, each potentially containing clues as to the overall mystery happening within these walls. But on top of all of that, there are actors portraying Omega Mart employees throughout the space that interact with you, the customer.
Portals and the apples.
Oh my god, did you say the portal?
Yes, I did.
I didn't say anything.
Okay.
So why don't you go get a drink over there?
Go get a drink? Okay, we'll go get a drink.
Omega Day.
You too, thank you.
It's like a twisted Disneyland. And just like Disneyland, there are lots of hidden secrets everywhere.
That's a meaty statue.
Omega Mart has a portal where reality warps and spits you out into what they refer to as the Forked Earth. Ladies and gentlemen, we are a long way from the local super target. Robots, aliens, hazmat suits, portals, and alternate worlds. It's like you're stepping into something ripped straight out of Rick and Morty. I gotta be honest, I haven't even stepped foot inside the supermarket yet, and already I feel like giving Omega Mart a round of applause. Not to mention my money. $9.99 for Kaleidospice? $49.99 for ham backpack? Just take my money, take it all! But for as much time as we can spend bargain hunting for the best deal on whale song deodorant or sniffing the various scents of verbal agreement air freshener, I do want to take some time to actually discuss Omega Mart's lore. And as you might imagine, it is spread everywhere. The physical supermarket, the secret forked earth through the portal, the commercials and corporate videos, the websites, and yes, that is plural, websites. So since I haven't been able to go to the store in person just yet, let's actually start online. When you visit OmegaMart.com, you're immediately greeted with a link to buy tickets, a corporate video, as well as some real GeoCities page builder vibes. But down in the corner, you're directed to 3 additional sites: Dramcorp, Jobs, and Employee Login. Since it's the first, let's start with the Dramcorp page. Oh, and friends, this is where things really start to get Kaleidospicy, because when it comes to the Dramcorp board, there's some serious backstabbing going on. As in, literal backstabbing. We quickly come to learn that Dramcorp is the parent company of Omega Mart, along with their other brands, Dramuticals and DART, short for Dramcorp Advanced Research Team. The CEO and founder of Dramcorp, Walter Dram, quote, won his first store in a game of poker in 1968 and has been on a winning streak ever since. Dramcorp soon exploded into a global enterprise thanks to its exclusive access to products infused with something called Additive S.
What you see here is an epical achievement. A sophisticated biosupplement synthesized by the Dramcorp Advanced Research Team.
Lord.
We call it Additive S. All natural and completely safe.
In late 2020, in a post on the Dramcorp website, Walter announced that he planned to retire, and he publicly named Kaz Matsumura, the company's VP of Futurability, as his successor, which probably came come as a surprise to some, considering his own daughter, Cecilia Dram, was currently serving as the company's VP of Tomorrowment. However, just a few months later in early 2021, Cecilia made an unexpected and rather cryptic post of her own, explaining simply that her father had moved on and that she now would be taking over as acting CEO of Dram Corp effective immediately, not Kaz Matsumura like everyone had planned. Something suspicious is going on here, especially when you consider that we've heard nothing from Walter Dram since Cecilia took over. But the corporate intrigue goes much deeper. What is Cecilia doing now that she's at the helm of Dram Corp? Well, it comes back to Additive S. See, Additive S seems to be Dram Corp's branded concentration of a material called Source. Despite Dram Corp's claims that it's completely safe, Source actually seems to be a really dangerous substance capable of doing some weird stuff, like making things a bit more alive than you'd expect and creating difficult spills.
Difficult spills may cause unsafe situations, such as tripping hazards, misplaced customers, and equipment failure.
People sporting hazmat suits and other protective clothing are a common sight in both Omega Mart and Dram Corp's Forked Earth facilities, with Source spills and leaks seeming to be a major reason why. So, what is Source then? Well, judging by an incomplete post made to Dram Corp's website, Source appears to be a physical manifestation of desire. And wouldn't you know it, but one of Cecilia's first acts as CEO was to announce a new process where unlimited desire can be drained, as well as, quote, a spectrum of innovative new products hyper-localized for peak consumer desirability. In short, Omega Mart seems to have a magical substance that can be infused into their products so that when consumed, people become addicted and want more. It turns them into the universe's most satisfied customers.
Our studies show Additive S increases customer satisfaction by up to 700% over a comprehensive range of products.
And where are they getting that source? Us. At least partly from us. After making us crave their products, Omega Mart drains that desire from us and adds it back to the source. You see, there's one particularly interesting attraction at the real-world Omega Mart location, a slide. When visiting the store, customers will have the opportunity to ride down a slide with Omega Mart employees cheering you on. Hold on, what did they say? Thank you for adding your human element to the source? Folks, it sure seems to me as though Cecilia Dram's exciting new initiative is to use Omega Mart's own customers to source the, source that it uses to synthesize Additive S. But what is the long-term goal here? Just to addict more consumers and sell more products? Not by a long shot. Cecilia isn't just using the source for boring old groceries, she has big plans that clash with her father's vision. In one video you can only see in store, and that we can only see thanks to this video on the Carpetbaggers YouTube channel, thank you for uploading that, Cecilia has an argument with her father in the source well about a girl named Marin.
Marin is special, Dad, in so many ways. She's going to change everything for us.
We later see hints that Marin Dram is missing. So then who is Marin? This girl who's gonna change everything? Well, she seems to be a creation of the source. Elsewhere in the store is a journal full of lots of juicy lore details that frankly you can't really see without going to the physical location of Omega Mart. But by slowing down and enhancing that footage from the Carpetbaggers video, we can get glimpses as to what's going on in there. In the journal, one employee talks about accidentally bringing a number of objects to life using Source. These mascots, as he calls them, are small but surprisingly useful. A note on one page has Cecilia saying that they're, quote, like guard dogs for anyone trying to get into what's beyond that side door of mine. Side door, huh? Sounds like something I should keep my eye out for when I'm in Vegas. But these little living things were proof that Source could be used not just for products, but to create fully living creatures. We've already seen how Source can turn lemons more human, and now we start to see how everything actually connects. Source seems to be some sort of liquefied desire or wish fulfillment. Meanwhile, Cecilia is harvesting the quote-unquote human element in her supermarkets, and as we heard from the employees, adding that back into the source. So we have ourselves a special wish-granting goo mixing with human potential. I suspect that Marin is the creation of that fusion, a larger human version of a mascot. In that clip of Cecilia fighting with Walter, Marin seems to emerge from the source and immediately ask if Cecilia is her mom. To add to that, apparently there are codes littered throughout the installment that, when strung together, spell out, "It was my daughter's wish." So what is this a reference to? Well, it seems to me like someone is literally dreaming some of these wild things into existence, and I suspect Marin, a being made entirely of reality-warping, wish-fulfilling source, might be our main suspect. So the long and short of it, theorists, is that Dram Corp is now in the hands of a madwoman so power-hungry that she overthrew her own father as CEO, possibly even killing him. Under Cecilia's leadership, Dram Corp was restructured, and Omega Mart was designed to lure in customers, sending them down their slide to drain all their human element and harvest harvest the energy to create other wish-fulfilling mascots like Marin. And loyal theorists, that is just the tip of this iceberg. What's all this about the forked earth? Where did the source originally come from? Why are there these mysterious water aliens hidden in the back of the store? What is behind that ominous side door? And seriously, how do they get prices that low for a 6-pack of Zolg? Theorists, there is so much more here, but all of it requires me to go in person. So I guess I have my work cut out for me. It's IRL research time. Into the belly of the beast. I've got my bags packed and a huge list of clues and notes that I want to follow up on when I head over to Vegas to shop at Omega Mart in a few weeks. Wish me luck. And if I do come back with a lack of human desire, just know that I always wanted you to subscribe to this channel, so do it in order to bring some joy back to my emotionally sucked clean bones. But hey, that's just...
I fear.
So people ask me all the
Good.
So people ask me all the time about theories that don't make the cut. Well, here's one for you. When I first wanted to do an episode on Falcon and the Winter Soldier, I was hoping that I could expose Bucky as a secret millionaire. You see, Falcon and the Winter Soldier deals a lot with Sam's financial troubles.
I know your family has banked with us for generations, but we cannot approve you.
Which,
okay, this is the last video before I take a little break, okay?
For the world's most powerful private military. It's probably a theory for another day, but no one ever talks about Buck, even though he's had decades to grow his wealth while he sat in the ground frozen. I mean, my schools didn't teach me much about money, but they did teach me the power of compound interest, baby! Invest a bit now, and in like a bunch of years, you're gonna be a millionaire. So I was like, I'm gonna calculate how much Bucky Barnes would earn in interest since 1942. And I bet that we're gonna find out that he's like one of the richest characters in the Marvel Universe. So I broke out the old number cruncher. Under the 1942 Pay Readjustment Act, we know how much Bucky would be making throughout his career. As an Army private first class in World War II, his salary would have been about $50 a month. Doesn't sound like a lot, but remember, this is old-timey dollars. Those are always worth a bunch more. He probably got promoted up to corporal right out of training camp and started making $66 a month. By the time he visits Steve Rogers at the beginning of Captain America, he was a sergeant and would be making $78 a month until his last 2 months in service, in which a 5% bonus would kick in, earning him $81.90. That totals just around $2,788 throughout his military career. Let's then say that he was a financially savvy guy and got himself a 3% interest savings account compounded monthly, into which he deposited his whole paycheck. That means that through his military career, Bucky Barnes would have earned roughly $4,940.94. It's not exactly what I was hoping for, and definitely not enough money to warrant getting thrown off a train and losing your arm. But wait for it, after 78 years of compound interest, drum roll please. Wait, that's it? It still only comes out to $51,143.50. After 78 years, Bucky is still not even beating the average income for an American male in 2020 at $52,004. Moral of the story, don't trust Mr. Cole, my 10th grade economics teacher. Compound interest, meh. All in on Dogecoin! Hello, Internet. Welcome to Film Theory, the show that tries to do better. Speaking of being better, if you want to be better at working from home, check out the interview we just did over on the Rocket Learn user experiences trying to work at home with your significant other. Of headphones, desks, and honest conversations with your roommates by checking out that episode. Link is down in the description below and at the end of the video. Now, if you ended up passing on the first season of Falcon and the Winter Soldier, first of all, you missed out on a piece of the MCU that could most definitely do better. The whole thing kind of feels rushed and chopped to pieces. It's fine, I guess, but it feels like the first real Marvel property to struggle with the balance between telling a compelling story while also being beholden to setting up the next 5 years worth of Marvel plots and merch bait. That said, while it certainly wasn't one of the most highly rated MCU projects, it does present lots of interesting ideas, even if it doesn't always do a good job of fleshing them out. Case in point, the iconic line to come out of the season 1 finale episode, "Be better," and what the heck that actually means, other than it just being great meme bait. Quick flashback to what leads up to this famous line in case you've been sleeping on the series or the last 3 MCU movies. Back in 2017, Thanos, that's the purple guy here, snapped half of the universe out of existence. Poof! 5 years later, the Avengers, specifically Hulk, undid the snap, bringing everyone right back to where they were when they disappeared. They didn't reverse time or anything, they just created some 3.5 billion people out of thin air. Now, back when I told the world that Thanos unfortunately was right, I talked about how a new abundance of resources and production would make life for the remaining population significantly easier. Well, this time around, we actually have the opposite situation. A world that had dealt with and moved past the 3.5 billion deaths, built to only serve some 3.5 billion people suddenly having to serve double that amount. That's the primary cause of the events of Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Our sort of antagonist, Carly Morgenthau, has benefited tremendously from what's now referred to as the blip, along with a bunch of other outcasts, refugees, and marginalized groups who fled their oppressive countries during the snap times. These people do not want to go back to how life was before the blip, and their organization, the Flag Smashers, has the goal of keeping country borders down to allow displaced people to stay in their new lives. But Carly isn't exactly peaceful about it. In her final act, she attacks a meeting of the Global Repatriation Council, which is an organization aiming to return things to the way they were pre-snap. She's eventually stopped by Sam Wilson as the brand new Captain America and killed by the Power Broker. Cut and roll credits, right? Wrong. Sam, as an ethnic minority, sympathizes with her mission and lectures the Global Repatriation Council members about being better in a nearly 4-minute monologue. For 4 minutes, he speaks truth to power. Yeah, stick it to those government bigwigs, is what the swelling impassioned music wants you to believe, but when you actually listen to Sam's words, they sound pretty, but they're ultimately hollow.
Our peacekeeping troops will begin relocating people soon. The terrorists only set us back a bit.
You have to stop calling them terrorists.
Stop calling them terrorists,
Huh?
he says, about a group of people that bombed buildings and killed people to get their message across. No matter how noble your message is, that's just not okay. But it continues.
And the people who reappeared only to find someone else living in their family home, they just end up homeless? Look, I get it, but you have no idea how complicated this situation is.
You know what? You're right, and that's a good thing. We finally have a common struggle now.
Way to deflect the question there, Sam. Government dude's like, hey, you don't get it, superhero guy. This is a tough problem to solve. And Sam responds with a, well, yeah, but now you know what it's like to feel helpless and hated by people. That is not the point of this conversation, Sam. The senators are talking about how there's no perfect solutions to these humanitarian problems. You're talking about why it's time they get hate for their decisions. You see, all these are two separate conversations that have nothing to do with each other. By the end of the speech, here's his advice.
You've got to do better, Senator. You've got to step up.
Be better. Be better at what? Solving the complicated housing, food, and humanitarian issues of a planet that just doubled in population? Just feed everyone, find everyone a home, give everyone medical care, clean water, a job. And while we're at it, probably include fair working conditions and appropriate retirement, childcare, access to technology, literally everything a functioning society needs. Just provide all of that. Easy.
But you have no idea how complicated this situation is.
We finally have a common struggle now.
No, you don't. Your job is punching aliens in the face. Just do better. Now, before I ruin this idea for everyone, which is, of course, where this is going because this is film theory, I want to acknowledge that for as hard of a time as I'm giving Sam here, and more importantly, not Sam himself, but the writers of this scene, his message does resonate with a lot of us at the end of the incredibly hard year that was 2020. In 2020, every single person watching this and writing, editing, or publishing this felt like our health, our communities, our families, jobs, financial security, and personal liberties were all put into jeopardy. No matter how many weird plot choices or confusing narrative elements Falcon and the Winter Soldier had, Sam's sentiment here is #relatable. Every person out there has wanted to say something like this to a local, national, or international leadership person. But that said, what exactly is he saying? It's one thing to speak pretty words, but it's another thing to actually solve the problem. He's literally asking this council to solve all humanitarian problems throughout the entire world with the stroke of a pen. Well, let's see if we can put into words what doing better would actually look like. This one's gonna be great, friends. One YouTube video to try and solve the world's limited supply of resources. I am sure that this is going to be achievable in every way. First, let's talk about the Repatriation Council. We're told by Carly that the GRC's primary interest is the people who got blipped out of existence for 5 years and not the people who actually lived through those 5 years. To start, this is a strange philosophy that goes completely counter to the legal system of almost every first world country. Everyone who was blipped away was essentially presumed dead by everyone left behind, and as such, the governments would start dealing with their estates as if they had died. While different countries and states have a range of laws, they all tend to follow the same general philosophy. You can't unspill a glass of milk. Think about it like this. After someone dies, there are plenty of assets that just go on to the next of kin. Things like cars and houses are obvious, but literally all your stuff goes to someone else. And while I love my parents, if something awful should happen to them, I'm not going to be hanging on to every pair of my dad's underwear for the rest of my life. life. Also, my parents have a lot of the same stuff I have. Maybe their lawnmower is better than mine, but that just means that when I inherit their lawnmower, mine's going into a garage sale. Usually within a month of somebody dying or being declared dead, their former possessions get strewn across dozens of owners and their money starts being spent. As such, most laws are written such that it's not easy for someone who's disappeared to come back and reclaim their life. One state that does handle things better is Pennsylvania, where declaring somebody dead without clear evidence that they are actually dead requires the claimant to post a bond for the value of the dead person's assets. This way, if the person does show up, the state can either return the assets or at least give them a fair bit of money to help compensate them. But when half the population gets blipped out in front of everyone's eyes, it might be considered clear evidence of death. If not, I feel awful for the bonds industry of MCU Pennsylvania, which just went entirely bankrupt to pay for half the state's reappearance. Speaking of inheritance, I think there's some logic that we can all follow about how it's not really fair to give someone back a house after another person took care of it for the last 5 years. Houses are assets, but they're not like a bar of gold that just sits there gaining value. Houses need constant maintenance. Lawns need to be mowed, gutters need to be cleaned, roofs need retiling, all as a completely natural part of owning a home. If you rent an apartment, your landlord is probably handling most of those things, which is why you pay them probably more than you would be paying a bank for the mortgage on the same property. That means that if you aren't actively maintaining a house or actively paying rent on the house, someone else is laboring for you for free. You might be surprised to know that most countries have thought of this and actually have developed laws around what's called squatters' rights. Squatters' rights vary significantly from country to country and state to state, like any set of rules, but the general concept is that you can't kick someone out of their place of residence without warning, even if they aren't paying for it. Now, the GRC is clearly giving a lot of people in the world warning that they're about to be evicted from their homes, but also, most of these people are presumably paying for those homes. In Spider-Man Far From Home, Aunt May tells us that she appeared suddenly in her old apartment where people were living.
When I blipped back to my apartment, the family that was living there was very confused. The wife thought that I was a mistress.
It doesn't sound like that family was just squatting there. It sounds like they had legitimately moved in. Even if not, many states have statutes that allow a squatter, someone who's been living there for free, to pay to gain ownership of the home if they can prove that they've maintained or improved the property. Since most of these residents had actually been paying the whole time, the law as it's written would ensure that they had the rights to stay there. So yeah, Sam has a point here. The Global Repatriation Council is doing some really weird business in that they're trying to allow people back to their former countries when legally these people should have the right to live in the properties where they're currently living. That being said, this is totally an unprecedented world event. Clearly, you're gonna have to make some drastic choices. Can't just leave 3.5 billion people homeless. And the fact is that now the demand for everything, from food, housing, clothing, medicine, all of it has doubled in every possible way. According to everyone's high school introductory economics course, the increasing demand with the flat line of supply should mean that the prices on everything in the world would be skyrocketing to unbelievable levels. Alternatively, if price controls are in place, there's gonna be shortages of pretty much everything as humanity scoops up what little supply there is. And while all the rest of this is happening, the people who have just reappeared need immediate help. I mean, most are immediately homeless, most are immediately jobless, their families and most importantly their assets are just gone to who knows where. The point is that these returners don't have the ability to pay skyrocketing prices to keep up with demand. So the GRC has this really difficult choice here. If they create some sort of legislation to keep prices from doubling overnight, they might save families from being evicted and starving, but they also might force everyone into an extreme resource shortage faster and worse than it would happen naturally. So tell me, Captain America, which of these options is doing better? Well, what if there was a third option? In a world where we've all been watching our mailboxes and making our memes about the COVID relief checks, what about government relief? Open up that money printer and give people the cash. Most money today is digital, and the federal government could just fulfill banks' money orders by literally printing enough money to replenish the empty accounts of those who are snapped away. This, however, causes yet another big problem: inflation. Even just with 2020, the United States Federal Reserve hasn't exactly been reserved about printing a lot of money to infuse into the parts of the economy that needed it the most over the last 18 months. We're seeing tons of articles about inflation actually happening right here, right now, as we speak, because that's just what happens when the market floods with a lot of new money. For For us, inflation might be more temporary, but in a post-blip world, the amount of money that would have to be printed to reimburse 3.5 billion people would cause inflation at a level that is impossible to comprehend. Imagine every country in the world just printing banknotes. They immediately become useless pieces of paper. If you need a primer on inflation, we actually covered it in depth over on Game Theory when we talked about the World of Warcraft economy. Now, when inflation gets out of control, it's called hyperinflation, and you can see modern examples of it in places like Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe's troubles began in the 1990s when dictator Robert Mugabe instituted a racial policy to evict white landowners from their farms and replace them with black farmers instead. However, many of these newly landed farmers had no farming experience and little in the ways of capital to finance things like equipment. So in just a few years, Zimbabwe's food output had dropped nearly 45%. However, Mugabe wanted to continue intervening in wars in his region and thus started printing Zimbabwe dollars to pay for his military. At its peak, Zimbabwe was experiencing a staggering 89.76 trillion% annual inflation. Any money that you acquired at the beginning of the year was completely worthless by the end of the year. To put that kind of inflation into perspective, with numbers like that, it would make Jeff Bezos, the world's richest man at $186 billion, worth a fraction of a penny in a year. Now, obviously, things wouldn't be that bad for most countries printing money for the blipped citizens, since the most that they would probably do is increase inflation by 100%, but that's still way more inflation than most countries can handle. Right after its founding in 1776, the United States experienced the most inflation in its history, with its currency inflating 29.78%. It is never a good solution, but is technically a solution. Now, for people like Carly Morgenthau in the show, the people who've survived for the last 5 years, this solution will definitely suck, because any money that she and everyone else around her have earned honestly in the past 5 years of working will instantly be worth half or less than it was before, and items will suddenly cost at least double. People who were disenfranchised or below the poverty line have now spent the last 5 years earning more than they could have ever earned before, because now their labor is more needed than ever in a post-snap world. Suddenly, though, with all this inflation, they're disenfranchised again, and all the money that they've earned is worth a fraction of what it used to be. On top of all of it, with this massive population flood, labor now becomes incredibly cheap. There are so many people who need jobs, so the competition to actually keep the job that you had during the blip is going to be completely impossible. So at that point, you have 3.5 billion people who are sort of okay, 3.5 billion people who are pretty mad at the other half, and very, very expensive bread for everyone. So what is Captain America's plan here? Well, he might actually have the answers, even though he doesn't feel like sharing. In The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, we watched Sam deal with a lot of the issues the blipped are facing. He can't get a loan because he has 5 years of no income. He's afraid that he'll need to sell his family's boat, and his sister is worried about the rent going up again. Sam doesn't really solve any of those problems, but he does manage to get his mother's boat fixed up by cashing in on goodwill. He rallies his community behind a common goal, and he gets it done. Carly talks about the same thing when she opines for the days when it wasn't every man for themselves. Instead,
We got a glimpse of how things could be.
no, the reality of the situation isn't be better, Senator Man. It's inspire others to be better. At the end of the day, Carly was wrong to be attacking the GRC, not just because it's an international crime and she was turning her friends into biological weapons, but because the GRC isn't the ones with the power here. They're not going to be able to come up with a solution that's going to be satisfying to everyone. That sort of thing is just impossible. Country borders or no country borders, what needs to be better is people's willingness to work together as individuals to get through times of crisis. The good news is that, unbeknownst to the filming team who shot the show starting back in October of 2019, people are actually capable of that. They're capable of collectively doing things for the greater good, like wearing masks, delivering food, donating money and time, and literal oxygen. At least enough of us are good enough at that it can get the entire world through a major global upheaval. Carly was right. The GRC is trying to make things the way they were before the blip, and that's a bad plan. At this point in the MCU, people need to collectively be doing things they had never done before. The GRC is trying to make things the way they were before the blip by just trying to hit the rewind button. But the thing is, there is no rewind button once a major global disaster strikes. There's no putting that cat back in the bag, friends. Listen to us here in 2021. We would know. But hey, that's just a theory.
A theory. A film theory.
And I know you're pretty sad that this episode's ending. I know you're probably like, wow.
Okay. I think this is a good time now to say. Also, ich mache jetzt eine kleine Pause. Also, bis in ein paar Minuten wieder.
Viel Eisen im Blut und währenddessen sitze ich da. Ich will doch nur nach.
Do you see that? Do you fishing see that, Selena? I got the mother fishing diamond. I got the mother fishing diamond. out of a month where you are literally standing on a tree and you should expand your... And we recorded the musical video with Monica's lyrics and Netsky's flute solo. You want to say that this is goddamn Netsky right now? At the same time, with this goddamn timing, like,
In this corner, we've got.
What? Roman man? Hulk.
Who is the champion of being exhausting?
Wait, what? Wait, what? Viva Las Vegas! Das ist meine einzige Einnahmequelle. Wehe, jemand kauft es. Oder sonst muss ich jemanden hauen. Wehe! Wehe! Dummy! 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 Wehe! Nein! Nein!
Ich weiß sonst nicht, ich hab kein Geld, ich hab's.
Yeah. Welcome to Try. The quote best internet provider in the whole world. Or at least in Austria. Unquote.
Gegen M&M's.
Die M&M's.
Ein Random Fact, das kann ich aber sagen über fuck, jetzt kann ich nicht mehr Jetzt kann ich nicht mehr aussprechen. Ich hab's einmal absichtlich falsch gesagt, jetzt kann ich nicht mehr aussprechen. Oh Gott. Ein Random Fact über
Alles okay, guck mal. No, Pikachu. And he died. Really, Pikachu.
Der seinen Anwalt kennt Kiosk schon sehr gut. Der erzählt das durch.
Der Anwalt so, ja komm, alles easy, mach das.
Alter, das ist göttlich.
Weißt du, Belle Delphine hat Gamer Girl Bathwater. Ich hab Kamelpisse und Sperma-Shampoo. Ist viel mächtiger.
Kaum auf Harvus.
Oh.
Meinung zu Z3 Ropen XD.
My opinion on him. I don't have one. That's all. Okay, I get what you mean. Okay. First off, no, that's not it. It's correde over. Put the thing in there. Go to work. Then, if I. And I'm back. Und wir machen weiter mit ein bisschen Linus Tech Tips.
I made 3 critical mistakes building this computer. See no worky. I didn't seat my RAM correctly, and I didn't flip the switch on my power supply. But wait, I said there were 3 errors. Well, the last one, it's not going to prevent the system from powering on. You can see it's powering on just fine. But what it is a silent performance killer.
Morgen, Lena. Wie geht's dir?
But come on, you might say. Not me. I mean, who could be that stupid?
Sehr viele Leute.
Until one fateful day, even though I had years of PC building experience. I was in the middle of build, I got distracted, pulled away doing something else, came back, carelessly put it together, and pow!
Ja.
Plastic between my CPU.
Bin vor 2 Stunden aufgewacht und jetzt schaue ich mir ein paar Videos an im Stream.
Between your CPU and your cooler right now without you knowing it? And who's our sponsor for
Yeah.
this video? Ridge Wallet has redid the heat sinker. For the best performance, every heat sinker water block is finished with a smooth, flat surface.
Yep.
This is to ensure that there's as much contact area as possible. Any small imperfection in this surface could easily impact the cooler's performance or even cause the system to thermal throttle. So that's why many manufacturers of cooling solutions include plastic covers or, at the very least, stickers to prevent this sensitive area from being damaged in shipping or by the technical
nice.
in your computer. So some, for example, will have a hard plastic shell. This is particularly common on coolers that have pre-applied thermal compound, like this water cooler from NZXT, I think? Yes. One nice thing about this approach is that because it's so bulky, it would be pretty hard to accidentally install the cooler unless you've removed it, though I'm pretty sure that has been done. Most coolers are more like this Hyper 212 Evo, though. They've got like a thin film type sticker that usually, if the manufacturer is smart, has a warning that looks a little something like this. Please peel off label before you use it. Warning. Nice little tab. Of course, I'm not going to pull on that tab today because what we want to know is what happens if you don't peel it. Our first participant is going to be an Intel Core i3-8100, and this is for a couple of reasons. Number one is that this is a relatively inexpensive chip, and I don't know what's going to happen. I don't think that it's going to be able to fry itself, but it is possible that this plastic could melt and render the chip inoperable that way. Number two is that this is an entirely realistic scenario. I mean, someone could easily be kind of half asleep on the assembly line at a computer maker like Acer or Dell, and it's possible that it could make it all the way past QC into the box and to your front door.
Yeah.
Where is it? Oh, almost forgot to put thermal paste on it. Oh my goodness, this feels so wrong. While we boot up is a perfect time to stay hydrated.
Epic water filters.
LTTstore.com. Oh yeah, t-shirts too. We have mystery shirts now. What's a mystery shirt, you might ask? It's a mystery, obviously. No, Brandon, don't give away the mystery. Right out of the gate, I can launch programs, browse the web. Everything is like perfectly responsive. There is nothing to indicate that something's wrong. In fact, okay, this sort of spoiled the big reveal. I've even got Counter-Strike running in the background here at anywhere from 100 to 150 frames per second. Now, that's not a lot for an RTX 2080 Super, but that is a lot for, you know, a Core i3-8100. It's the craziest thing. There's nothing about this experience to indicate that anything is the matter with this computer. Now, sometimes you'll have 200 FPS, but you'll feel inconsistencies or stutters or hitches. That's not, that's not the experience at all here. We've been playing the game for a while, and blah, 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 lots of FPS, etc. Check this out. Hardware info, casual 45 degrees Celsius, maximum 54 while gaming. If every CPU ran at 45 to 55 degrees Celsius, the world would be a cooler place. Of course, it's a well-known fact that games, particularly older ones, aren't capable of fully utilizing a multi-core CPU. So, we fired up Cinebench R23, and we're going to let this run for a while to see if we manage to overwhelm our plastic-coated cooler.
A few moments later.
With a maximum of 68 degrees, I feel like I have to prove to you guys. I'm gonna turn it off. You're gonna see that this is in fact the system I'm running. I'm gonna pop this cooler off. I swear to you, the plastic is on it. That's a completely serviceable operating temperature. I could own this computer for years and never realize that there was any kind of problem. The craziest part is we actually turned on multi-core enhancement in the BIOS. So this thing is turboing to the greatest possible extent that it can, even with an enthusiast class motherboard. Come on over here, Mark. I gotta prove this. We're doing this as a one take. Plastic, baby. And get this, there was no effect to the chip physically whatsoever. So that means I am ready to take things to another level. Because the thing is, acceptable performance doesn't equal optimal performance. And Surely, if it didn't make any difference whatsoever, Cooler Master wouldn't bother with this fancy little, hey, peel this thing off warning. So, to take things to the next level, we're gonna go with an Intel Core i9-9900K. This is an 8-core processor rated at 95 watts TDP, which on paper doesn't actually sound like that much more than 65 watts. But in practice, Intel's TDPs are more like pirate code guidelines. And this 65 watt chip, there's no way it actually consumes 65 watts. Meanwhile, this 95 watt chip, especially if you enable multi-core enhancement, is gonna consume way more than 95 watts. And here it is. Absolutely disgusting. Right? Let's give it a chance. Let's go with the CPU's default behavior and see what happens. And once again, no obvious problem. We're anywhere from 350 to 250 frames per second. Like, obviously, that's easily playable.
Yeah.
And it's smooth. This is with a Core i9. Pew, 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 pew. Wow, there are a lot of bullet holes in the wall behind his head. How is my aim so bad? Aha! But while we were gaming, we hit a maximum of 91 degrees, and yes, we did in fact thermal throttle, and this is before we even ran an intensive all-core load like Cinebench. Let's see what happens when we do that. And
it's getting pretty toasty.
I'm expecting this to be pretty rough. Ooh, 100 degrees instantly! And check this out. This heatsink is cool to the touch. So what the heck is going on here? There are actually a few factors at play here, starting with, bam! Surprise math lesson.
Okay.
This is normal. You've got your CPU and you've got your heatsink. You want all the heat to go from here to here where it can be dissipated to the air around it. But there are a couple of different paths it can take. It can either travel from metal to metal, because remember, on a microscopic level, metal is going to be textured no matter how much you try to polish it. So they might meet up kind of like this. Where those atoms are touching, that's where you're going to get the best possible thermal transfer. For everywhere else, well, of course, there's thermal compound to fill in those gaps. That's going to be R2. Now, heat is kind of like electricity in that it wants to take the path of least resistance. So these paths can be considered to be in parallel with as much heat as possible being transferred to our heatsink. This is where our plastic comes in. Now, we've got this original resistance equation, except kind of there is no R1 because there is no metal-to-metal contact and therefore no optimal route. And then we actually have to add the thermal resistance of our plastic, which is going to be a function of how thermally conductive our plastic is, hint, not very, and how thick it is, hint, not very. But that's still really bad because the thermal resistance of plastic is so freaking high. So what that means in practice is that with a very high thermal resistance, the difference in temperature between the CPU and the heatsink needs to be really, really high as the wattage goes up, right? So the more watts we're trying to move, the more heat we're trying to move between the CPU and the heatsink, the more that resistance hurts us. But I did say there was more than one factor at play, didn't I? You might have noticed the computer is still running. That's because any modern CPU, whether it's from AMD or Intel, is going to be equipped with a thermal sensor, or in many cases, a suite of them, along with the ability to dynamically scale its own frequency. And working together, those two features are called thermal throttling. So what they allow the chip to do is say, hey, if we reach this predetermined temperature that the manufacturer has deemed unsafe, you need to dynamically scale down the frequency until we're not drawing any more power and therefore putting out any more heat than the thermal solution can deal with. So you can see here that while the chip is absolutely running, it's getting a much lower score in Cinebench.
Bei mir ist es aktuell so 50 Grad bei der CPU und GPU.
And finally, there's how you actually use your computer. We saw a significant difference in throttling behavior between CSGO and a heavily multi-threaded workload like Cinebench R23. So the answer to our original question, just how bad is it depends. If you have a low-powered CPU, or if all you do is game, it's possible you've been running plastic on your CPU for years, and the worst effect you might notice is the odd stutter or hitch as your thermal throttling kicks in and drops your CPU frequency.
Hmm.
Or if you're a heavy user, it's likely you're leaving a significant amount of performance on the table, or as a worst case scenario, your chip could even die a premature death, because as we all know, the cooler you can keep your CPU, the longer it should last. The good news though, is that if you screw up and you accidentally put the plastic on and go, oh no, my temperatures are bad, and check it and fix it, the odds are that it's not gonna kill anything. Not like my killer segues.
Look, all I'm saying
Jetzt
is
ein paar
if they've got
Tech-News.
Summer Olympics and Winter Olympics, they can have.
Oh, das hört sich nicht so gut an, BlackBerry. Aber, naja. Besser mal schauen, ob dein CPU-Cooler Plastik drauf hat und vielleicht auch mal ein bisschen Staub ist auch eine gute Sache.
Have Tech News Olympics too, can't they? Let's just do it next year.
It would just be us and gamers.
Well,
Ja, okay, das maximal ist.
you probably know Noctua for making air coolers for CPUs that are very special because they're brown and tan.
Manchmal.
If some recent reports are accurate, the Austrian company may be partnering with ASUS on a line of graphics cards. According to
Wait, what?
Austrian company,
Wait, what? Wait, what? Was?
may be partnering with ASUS on a line of graphics cards. According to an EEC filing, ASUS has a GeForce RTX 3070 in the works with a Noctua designed cooling solution that has, in all likelihood, some tan and brown on it.
Whoa, prove
Maybe.
it.
Well,
I don't believe it.
I don't know. You can't make brown with RGB, so.
That's true.
Yep. While the 3070 isn't exactly a notoriously hot GPU, gamers and overclockers should still appreciate a graphics card with, a little bit more thermal overhead. And of course, the Noctua name carries a lot of weight in PC gaming circles. So it could represent a solid business opportunity for both ASUS and Noctua.
Wait, what? Was? Ha, okay, ich habe jetzt wirklich nicht gewusst, dass Noctua wirklich eine österreichische Firma ist. Well, that is some surprise.
More hype around their products. An ASUS spokesperson seemed to confirm the card's development, although they couldn't make any further comment, like what color the cooler will be.
I feel like it might be red.
Really? You think it'd be red?
Schwarz sag ich dazu noch, weil ich
neither of those colors or any of the colors of either of those companies.
weil ich habe auch Doktor und ja, das ist Fun Fact, ich habe selber Noctua Cooler bei mir und da ist witzigerweise der Ventilator oder der Fan schwarz, also nicht dieses beige, rot, braun Ding, sondern nur schwarz, weil ich liebe schwarz.
Oh, I guess ROG is a little bit red. Gigabyte is the latest PC
Ja, die
hardware
Leistung
company
ist
to get hit by a
richtig gut.
ransomware attack. Although customers noticed that Gigabyte's support pages were down earlier this week, a potentially more serious issue is that information on AMD and Intel chips, along with other technical data, were reportedly snagged in the cyber attack. Yeah, that's a problem. The hackers are threatening to release the 112 gigabytes of stolen data if Gigabyte doesn't pay the ransom. And then basically anyone could just build their own processors or motherboards.
Oh no!
Now,
Oh nein!
just find some silicon,
I think there's some in the mountains.
Yeah, well, probably some in some deserts somewhere, get some sand,
Yeah, maybe.
something like that. It's unclear if Gigabyte will pay or how much the crooks are actually demanding, but maybe Gigabyte can just cut them a deal on some 3080s, I mean, right now, it's almost as good as money.
That's how I pay at the restaurants.
Yeah, just hand over a wad of 3080s. Remember the days of those heavy-handed recording industry lawsuits against people who were just trying out a cool little app called Napster? Just trying to share some music with my friends online, all 30 million of them.
Very popular.
It's the most popular ever. I actually don't know why. Those might not be as much of a thing anymore, but that doesn't mean the
73% schon für
industry
den
has, shied
Metro.
away from the courts altogether. As a group of major record labels have recently filed
Wenn es so weitergeht, muss ich glaube ich diesen Monat dann
parent company behind the US
das schon
internet
kaufen.
provider, Spectrum. The suit claims that the labels sent 150,000 notices to Charter informing them of instances of copyright infringement, complete with user IP addresses, but Charter didn't do anything to stop it. Good guy, Charter? Not in this case. Although you might actually wonder at first if Charter is obligated to do anything. The labels did win $1 billion lawsuit against another ISP for a similar issue in 2019. But, before you feel bad for Charter, they'd probably pass on any fines they have to pay in the form of Spectrum price increases. So you should really feel sorry for yourself. That emotion is valid. Let the tears flow.
Thank you, Anthony.
Now it's time for the Quick Bits, brought to you by MSI and their MPG Core Liquid Cave 240. The MPG Core Liquid Cave 240 today at the
Lass mir
link in
das
the
mal ein
video
bisschen.
description. Quick Bits, well, sometimes they can be a little much.
But we love them all the same.
I don't know what this reference is.
No.
PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, often
Oh,
shortened
cool.
to PUBG, has just been renamed PUBG Battlegrounds, which is obviously redundant, like ATM machine or LCD display. But parent company Krafton is planning to release another game called PUBG New State, so that's apparently where this new branding comes from. Having an excuse doesn't mean it's okay. That's like me getting asked to initial something and I just write AY Young. Anthony Young.
Well, AY while you're young, you know?
Yeah, TL linked. If you've got an ASUS motherboard, be on the lookout for an important BIOS update, which will enable your system's TPM chip, if it's not already, in preparation for Windows 11, which requires it, sort of. If you have a system older than an Intel 8th Gen or Ryzen 2000 series, you probably don't have to worry about this because Microsoft hasn't really worried about you.
They forgot you. They're leaving you behind.
They didn't forget.
Oh.
They just don't forgive. In other Microsoft news, there's now a night mode rolling out for Xbox Insiders who are part of the Alpha Skip Ahead ring. In addition to using the dark UI theme, it also dims your display, disables HDR, and increases brightness on both the controller and the console LEDs. That's actually kind of neat. Maybe this way you'll actually be able to fall asleep on your couch before the sun comes up. Oh, it's my favorite thing to do. Tesla's upcoming Cybertruck has been delayed until at least 2022, no matter which model you are interested in. The delay is likely a result of the unusual production techniques the Cybertruck design requires. I mean, have you ever made shatterproof windows that aren't actually shatterproof?
It's a hard balance.
It's complicated. Elon Musk's company does risk falling behind in the EV truck wars since rivals are quickly getting their competing models to market. But those don't look like you turned the polygon count to the lowest setting. So who's gonna buy them?
Garbage.
Total garbo. You can't have a high poly model for a truck.
That just looks like a regular
No.
truck.
Yeah.
Who wants that?
And yet another Mario game has smashed the record for a single sale. A sealed original copy of Super Mario Bros. For the NES sold for $2 million last week.
That's a lot of money.
July's sale of his copy of Super Mario 64 for a little over $1.5 million.
Why?
I don't know. I asked this as soon as I saw this headline. It's so stupid. The new record holder fetched a 9.8 rating, so the buyer will be getting a pristine copy of the game that they'll surely never play. Like, I mean, there are so many ways to play Super Mario Bros. 1. Oh, well, that was definitely an episode of Tech Linked. Come on.
Yep.
Tech news comes at you fast. If you're not looking, it might just see? That's what I'm. Whoa! Jeez Louise. Samsung held their annual Unpacked event this morning and took the wraps off 4 major new products: the Galaxy Z Fold 3, the Z Flip 3, the Galaxy Watch 4, and Galaxy Buds 2. August is when we used to get new Galaxy Notes, but I guess Samsung passed too many of those in class, and now they've been sent to detention.
Ha! Ha!
Sam, yeah, the metaphor doesn't really work there. Like Samsung's, anyways. The Z Fold 3 improves on the Fold 2 in a number of ways, as Linus discovered in his hands-on video. It's got an under-display camera on the inside and support for the Samsung's S Pen stylus, along with an upgraded starting price of $1,800 US. Expensive. It is expensive. You might want to be careful using it on the street. You may get jumped. The Z Flip 3 is also cheaper than its predecessor, starting at $1,000 with a bigger cover display for selfies and a 120 Hz refresh rate for the main screen. Both of the Z phones have Snapdragon 888s inside.
Das ist auch immer viel Money.
Water resistant, which is a big leap from Samsung's original Foldies, which suffered from problems with dust and crap getting stuck in the hinge. I lost a whole hot dog in there once. I mean, I was forcibly trying to put it in.
Okay.
Galaxy Watch 4, the first fruit of Samsung's Wear OS partnership with Google. This thing's got a bioactive sensor that can measure body fat percentage, a new 5nm processor, and more RAM, and will start at $249. Finally, the Galaxy Buds 2. They're smaller and lighter than the Buds Plus, with proper active noise cancellation this time, and once again, seem to offer quite a lot for $150. Hey, thanks for all the cool products, Apple for Android people. No problem. Samsung? Hackers made off with around $611 million worth of cryptocurrency yesterday in one of the biggest digital heists ever. The victim was Poly Network, a P2P platform, who tweeted out the crypto addresses the funds had been transferred to and pleaded for the hackers to please return the funds. Appealing to the humanity. Please. Wait, it actually did work. Hours after the attack, the hackers started sending small transfers back to Poly Network, eventually returning around $260 million worth of various cryptocurrencies. One of the hackers has reportedly said they did it, quote, for fun and to expose vulnerabilities, and they were always going to return some of it. Some crypto fans following the story tried to get in on the windfall, though, replying to Polly's tweets asking, please, Mr. Hacker, if you see this, transfer me some coins too? And also sign up for my initial coin offering. It's called Plead Coin. It sounds promising. And maybe you don't even want to hear about new GPU launches, but reviews for AMD's RX 6600 XT came out yesterday, and, well, let's just say it doesn't do much to reverse the 2021 GPU trend. The consensus seems to be that the 6600 XT is somewhat lacking in performance for its $379 MSRP, which is probably a lot less than you would end up paying for it anyways. But don't worry, there was another GPU launch this week, NVIDIA's A2000. Sure, it's a workstation card, and is basically a downgraded RTX 3060, but look how cute it is.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Sure.
If GPU performance and price are now meaningless things to use for comparison, we might as well talk about cuteness factor, and the A2000 is off the charts. Sign me up.
We need more cute graphics cards. I'm sorry, but there's not enough.
Now it's time for Quick Bits, brought to you by com/10. Everybody % off Manscaped and free shipping today. Quick Bits coin. Everybody has a copy worldwide, which makes the bits even quicker. It's the future.
That's a good idea too.
Distribute the Quick Bits. Gamers Nexus has published an in-depth report on Gigabyte GP P750GM and P850GM power supply units that Newegg has been bundling with GPUs, apparently to sell off low-quality stock, because around half of the units the Tech Jesus crew tested failed. So watch their videos, pledge your heart to Steve if you haven't already. He deserves it. With that hair, it takes a lot of work. I'm trying to get there. You're halfway. Xiaomi announced a number of new products this week, but the standout has to be the CyberDog, a really cool new quadruped robot that is the result of hundreds of thousands of hours of R&D, which were apparently mostly spent reverse engineering the Spot robot from Boston Dynamics, because come on! That's also probably how they were able to price it so low. I mean, Xiaomi gets points for marketing. Their renders look really great, but the shamelessness on display here is much more impressive. Apple has officially settled their lawsuit with Corellium, maker of an iOS emulator that could run in a web browser. The judge ruled Corellium's use of Apple software qualified for fair use, meaning I could build a Hackintosh that runs iOS? Yeah, that's definitely not what this means at all, but you gotta admit, it would be useful to install Find My on my PC. Always losing it. It has a mind of its own. I put the Mac Pro wheels on it, so it's just... Amazon thinks it's finally found a way to appease customers who bought faulty products which resulted in bodily injuries. Money! People who purchase third-party products that cause damage to oneself or one's property are eligible for up to $1,000 in hush money. So you can put a down payment on a prosthetic leg for yourself, and Jeff can keep going to space. Everybody wins. I don't see a problem here. And OpenAI has found another use for their fancy language understanding GPT-3 system, allowing programmers to code without writing code. What? OpenAI's Codex will code for you based on natural language input. So you can just tell it to put a bunch of buttons somewhere on a web page, or, hey, show a little image of a guy I can control with arrow keys. What are you going to do, Jonathan?
Sounds like an assistant.
Hey, Codex, end this episode in a fun way and tell the audience.
Misinformation, tribalism, diseases, so many horrible things going on in the world, and you might think tech news wouldn't help with any of that.
It doesn't.
But companion bills have been proposed in both the US Senate and Congress that would pressure Apple and Google to be more open to third-party app stores and sideloading. Like Epic Games' lawsuits against the two tech giants, the proposed bills hinge on painting Apple and Google as enforcers of a duopoly on mobile operating systems and, by extension, the apps and app stores available to users. But no sooner were the bills introduced than a lobbying group called the Chambers of Progress decried them as a finger in the eye of anyone who bought a phone for the security of the App Store. The Chamber also noted they don't see any consumers marching in Washington demanding dumber smartphones. I totally would do that.
What?
Can you guess who funds the Chamber of Progress? Yeah. Oh yeah, really? The bills are in a very early stage, so we'll have to wait and see whether Apple and Google's progressive group is any successful at keeping things just the way they are. NVIDIA has revealed that their CEO, Jensen Huang, is that correct too? Has actually been a computer-generated AI construct this whole time. I knew it! Which is how he always looked equally cool at every major keynote he delivered. Okay, fine, Jensen is a real person, but he was completely CGI during a small section of the keynote for NVIDIA's GPU Technology Conference back in April. Team Green released a short documentary detailing how they used NVIDIA's Omniverse suite of tools to not only recreate a photorealistic Jensen, but also to painstakingly construct his kitchen and every graphic shown, even the PowerPoint slides.
Huh.
Have you tried to make PowerPoint in 3D before?
I miss word art. Here at LMG, we're also big into computers, so it's only a matter of time before we do the same thing. Just kidding, we're doing it right now. I'm a robot, and so are you. Nothing's real.
What?
Facebook also wants to bend reality, but not by constructing CGI images. Though aren't they doing that with Oculus or something? But rather by bullying academic researchers into dropping their investigations of the company's problematic practices. Last week, Facebook banned NYU researchers who were studying how ads can spread misinformation. And this week, a firm called Algorithm Watch was more or less forced to shut down its research into Instagram's algorithm after Facebook threatened a lawsuit. These stories are made more alarming by the fact that both groups of researchers reported some troubling findings, like the fact that Instagram's algorithms encouraged photos that showed bare skin.
No, not your ankles!
I thought that was just because everyone liked bare skin.
That's true. Who doesn't?
Maybe we don't. Some US senators are now looking into Facebook's actions, so they might not get away with banning anyone who dares look into potential problems on the world's biggest social platforms. I, for one, need to know how my mom gets so many likes on her photos of, like, a sunset, which happens every day. Yeah. Now it's time for Quick Bits, brought to you at pulseway.com or through the link below.
No.
Bits. If you don't let them out to play every once in a while, we'll go a little stir crazy.
Yeah.
We had to deal with some here. Apple is doing some damage control after announcing those iPhone scanning measures from last week. Craig Federighi told the Wall Street Journal that it might not have been a good idea to announce one feature, which scans photos about to be uploaded to iCloud for child sexual abuse material, or CSAM, and a separate feature that would detect explicit content in the Messages app for children. I'm not sure that Craig is doing anything to calm people's fears about privacy, though, especially when flagged material will apparently go through multiple layers of auditability. That sounds like multiple people looking at stuff, Craig.
Yeah, don't worry about it. I'll make sure that you're very private. We'll all take a look.
It's such a confusing system. Doth my eyes deceive me, or did Micro Center actually sell a bunch of RX 6600 XTs at and below its MSRP of $379.99?
What?
Huh?
It might be less of an indication that the chip shortage is completely over and more a result of China's crackdown on mining, which flooded the market with used GPUs. But still, it's like we've gotten a glimpse of the sun again through the clouds. It reminds me that the sun's still there. They're not.
Stay far away though.
That's true, but not today. It's very smoky here.
Yeah.
Well, Gigabyte has responded to claims about two of its power supply models being faulty, a story that was deeply investigated by Gamers Nexus. Rather than issuing a recall, Gigabyte is lowering the percentage range by which the PSUs can exceed their power load by 10 to 30%, which is good, but not a great response to the fact that half of the PSUs Gamers Nexus tested broke during the stress testing. But hey, maybe Gigabyte knows that sometimes life is dangerous and you can't make an omelet without a few exploded power supplies.
I mean, have you ever tried to cook an egg on a power supply?
That's a good idea.
Tastes better if it explodes.
Huh?
TikTok has enacted more measures designed to protect its teenage users, including setting videos to private by default for users aged 13 to 17 years old. They can then choose who can see their videos, and 16 to 17-year-olds can also choose who can download their videos. Ah yes, 16. The year that we, as a society, have long decided is the age at which one can maturely make a decision about who else can keep a video of oneself for personal consumption. A wonderful time in human history we are living through.
Yep.
And the hacker responsible for the biggest crypto heist ever has returned almost all of the 600 million in cryptocurrency they stole. And the platform they stole it from, Poly Network, is so grateful it offered them a $500,000 reward for pointing out a hole in its security. But the hacker reportedly refused because they apparently made a butt ton of money off crypto already, making this maybe the weirdest, most twisty crypto story I've ever heard.
No.
Twisty crypto? Sounds like a craft beer. I don't like beer. Time to get ourselves a cold one and end this episode. Come back.
Okay, good. So. How about some mumps? Some good old mumps. Cat. Yeah. Annika. Meow. No. Stop. Don't. Wow. Okay. That's going fast. Well. Only in Soviet Russia. Okay, baby. I mean, no rocks. Kobe. Why? Oh, yeah. Oh. Well. Thank you for the follow and welcome to the Air Force. Oh, Kibro. Thank you for the follow. Ja, welcome. Ich hoffe, schreib mal irgendwas in den Chat, damit ich auf jeden Fall weiß, dass du kein Bot bist, weil... Okay, gut. Hoffentlich hattest du einen schönen Morgen, angenehmen Morgen und möchtest ein bisschen anschauen. Ja, ich will noch sicher gehen, weil man weiß ja nie. Aktuell bei hier auf Twitch. Also, you like it? Rush me. Okay. Kann ich nicht mehr. Okay. Okay. Oh, that's a cute doggy. Aha, man sieht, wie man sieht man vieles aus. Irgendwas ist da, das man nicht sehen möchte. Was? Baby kitten. Wow. Oh. 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 Yes. Was? Excuse me, what? Ja, einen wunderschönen Tag. I mean, okay. That was... Ja. Und... Well. Mhm. Sheesh. Wow. Excuse me, was? Was? Excuse me, what? Ha, wie? Was? Wie? Okay.
No! Go get your own!
Okay. That's a burger. Down. Das ist ein heftiger Klatsch. Huh. Wait.
Sometimes people are like, why'd you move back to New York? And I was like, I don't know, I just really love the ambiance and like the
Okay. Aha. Mhm. Ha, diese Tomate ist ja... Oh, oh, das ist ein guter Bier. Okay, und ciao. Naja, darauf muss ich so... Au. Ha! Well. Oh. Okay. Wir können noch schlafen. Hey. It can't be great. All the time. Anyway, it's getting late. Good night. Und ja, ich will jetzt mit einer kleinen Pause wieder mal. Weil, ja, also ein kleines BRB und ich sehe euch in ein paar Minuten wieder, okay? Oh.
Meinung zu Z3 Ropain XD.
My opinion on him. I don't have one. That's all. It's the train.
FIESHUAU.
And we recorded the musical video with Monica's lyrics and Netsky's flute solo. You want to say that this is goddamn Netsky right now? At the same time, with this goddamn timing, like, that.
In this corner, we've got.
What? Roman man? Hulk.
Who is the champion of being exhausting?
Wait, what? Wait, what?
Der seinen Anwalt kennt Kiosk schon sehr gut. Der zieht das durch.
Der Anwalt so, ja komm, alles easy, mach das.
Alter, das ist göttlich.
Weißt du, Belle Delphine hat Gamer Girl Bathwater. Ich hab Kamelpisse und Sperma-Shampoo. Das ist viel mächtiger.
Kaum aufhaben,
Ah, okay, I get what you mean. Okay, first off, no, that's not it. It's Correde. Over.
Ja, das würde ich mal gerne so. Oh, ich will
Eigentlich alle Fallout-Games, weil Fallout 2 und 1, die 2D-Ansicht noch haben, die sind auch verlässlich.
The fuck? The fish? Just the fish.
So, ich
Au.
schmeiße in Fallout New Vegas.
Na, jetzt außer VTuber. Au! Ouch! Ouch! Yeah, that was mountain.
Viel Eisen im Blut und währenddessen sitze ich da. Ich will doch nur nach.
Und bin wieder da. Und wir mal mit einer kleinen Challenge und einer lila vieles Challenge. Ja, das ist alles.
Beautiful this is. I love time.
Okay.
Oh my god, what are you doing here?
Is that a beefy potato flatbread taco with extra
Beans.
and creamy jalapeno sauce? Mmm.
What?
Heaven right now. Little piggy, you're gonna go to heaven right now.
Okay.
And you're gonna turn into a...
Here, Brian.
Thank you for having fun. No problem.
Wow, I just disappeared.
Understandable? Understandable?
The best banana I've ever had, but I should probably go get another one, right? Yeah. Let me just go get another one. And actually...
What? Stop. Das ist ein guter Trick. Das ist ein guter Trick. Dumm, aber gut. Seriously? Ah. Okay. Wow. What you doing there? Okay. Hey, ladies.
I won't lie. This is definitely me when I'm driving.
Cheese.
Cheese. My main goal is to blow up.
Doctor. Ah!
Officers in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, were asking people to be on the lookout for a man who robbed a store. And I think, yeah, I think we do have his description. Can we take that? Let's take his description.
And now, Orton grabbing the top rope, blocking the A attempt.
Oi, 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 Erwin. Pee-pee. Pee-pee.
Wait, what?
And who was flickering the lights?
Don't. Nice, es ist nur ein Ausgib.
Watch till the end for the next featured comment.
No.
I am making macaroni.
What a major twist.
And what's the twist?
Chicken strips.
You want some almonds? Sure.
Bro, you want some more almonds?
Sure.
You don't want any? No, I just like sucking the chocolate off the outside.
Told me the word is gonna run me.
It's things you can say to your dog, but not your girlfriend. Come. Oh my! Grab the ball. Grab the ball. Grab the ball. Get off the mailman. Get off the mailman.
For jeg gifta meg med Nei, for jeg gifta meg med deg. Jeg syns du var god kar. Shake hands, bro.
Wait, what? Wait, what?
1, 2, 3.
I mean, yeah, yep.
So, I'm a bit nervous.
Just because I'm in New York doesn't mean I'm not right there with you. Oh, did you get those notes? Did you?
Yep, I got them right here. I've been reviewing them in my office all morning.
You know, when I had my first presentation, my boss told me that success.
Smack about people's not cool.
I know something about you.
Feel like you fought.
What?
Round one.
No, don't.
Here we go.
What?
Looney Tunes meals, Daffy Duck.
Thank you. My spaghetti and meatballs.
Boy, how you're so
What?
What's your name? Right there. Oh,
Hi, Vino Moose. Oh, hi, Vino Moose.
All I gotta do is challenge them to a thumb war. They say yes, and then.
Wow. I mean, eh?
I'd be trying to prove that I'm not crazy when I knew I wasn't crazy.
Then you'll want to get a close look at his luxurious Bel Air home.
Yes, I will. Yep.
So, somebody's inviting me to go live. Let's see what happens here. It's probably going to be a trick. Oh my gosh, it's a real person.
Oh, you just said, oh my God, it's a black person.
Oh no, I said real person. No.
No, you said a black person.
No, I said real person.
You said black person.
I did not. No, I'm sorry.
You said that. No, you just said black person. Oh my God.
You keep telling yourself that and you'll always be wrong until the end of time.
Cogemos un huevo.
Okay. Boop.
It is pretty crazy how we as a society sleep in many different ways. For example, I sleep with my arm like this, and my girlfriend sleeps with her ex-boyfriend.
I'm gonna go show you the pic. Alright, let's go. Hey.
Hi there.
Casha, oh, did you get scared?
Holy shit, I did 94 point blank to his fucking head, dog. A drink in Mexico.
Nice.
A drink in Norway. Yeah. A drink in China. A drink in Germany. A drink in Italy. A drink in America. A drink in Japan. A drink in Morocco. A drink in France. A drink in England. Canada.
Well. Ich glaube, das ist jetzt mal genug für heute. Und eigentlich... Was ist es? möchte ich auch damit den Stream jetzt auch beenden. Wäre da nicht nämlich meine kleine Ankündigung, die ich nämlich mal habe. Und zwar gibt es eigentlich genau 2 Sachen. Und zwar einmal am Mittwoch würde ich zusammen mit Offbeat Panda Bear, würde ich nämlich zusammen Phasmophobia spielen. Und zwar wird das nämlich von 17 Uhr bis 19 Uhr sein. Also ist geplant. Achso, nein, von 18 Uhr bis 20 Uhr meine ich damit. Natürlich kann es vielleicht auch länger werden. Das wissen wir beide noch nicht. Und dann noch gibt es natürlich das Schöne. So, das werde ich nämlich, glaube ich, auch dann veröffentlichen. Und zwar wird nämlich ja in einer Woche, würde ich ja meinen 12-Stunden-Stream haben. Und ich habe schon auch mir meinen kleinen Zeitplan schon vorgestellt. Und zwar wird der Stream nämlich mit einem geupdateten Debüt anfangen, der auf Englisch ist. Für 2 Stunden circa habe ich dafür geplant. Dann danach würde ich in Minecraft auf Deutsch mir was Kleines bauen. Wobei dann am Ende von dem Teil werde ich dann die IP releasen für alle, damit die nämlich dann auf den Server joinen können, um mich selbst zu bauen. Weil der Server wird nur bis 23 Uhr nämlich online bleiben. Und ja, danach würde ich eine kleine Mittagspause machen. Dann gibt es einen speziellen, kann man mich dann über Discord anschreiben für Geburtstagswünsche, weil hey, der Stream wird nämlich an meinem Geburtstag stattfinden. Und falls da nicht so sehr Interesse ist, werde ich da vielleicht dann dafür ein paar Videos anschauen. Wie immer an Alex Day. Dann nach dem ganzen Teil werde ich dann eine kleine Tierlist machen mit VTubern. Da werde ich natürlich auf Twitter sagen, ja, schickt mir eure PNGs. Und zu guter Letzt wird der Stream dann beendet werden mit Minecraft, mit, wie gesagt, die ganzen schönen Builds, die ihr dann gemacht habt, dann anzuschauen. Und ja, das wird der gröbere Plan sein für den 12-Stunden-Stream. Und habe ich noch sonst eine Ankündigung? Ja, theoretisch hätte ich da eine. Und zwar habe ich nämlich vor, mit nächsten Monat, also mit September, habe ich vor, nämlich VR-Spiele zu spielen. Ich kann das aktuell nicht ganz genau versprechen, weil ich warte dabei aktuell auf meine Controller, meine nachgekauften, weil wie gesagt, meine vorherigen, die ich hatte, sind irgendwie weg, also sind irgendwohin verschwunden, und ja, deswegen das. Und ja, das sollte es wirklich alles dann gewesen sein. Ich werde euch zu Marcellus euch reden. Der spielt aktuell Minecraft und feiert auch, wie es aussieht, seinen hat einen 24-Stunden-Stream. Und ja, wir sehen uns dann wie immer am Dienstag zu Minecraft auf dem Vitality Discord Server, mit dem Vitality Minecraft Server. Und dann habt noch einen schönen Tag, eine schöne Nacht, falls es nach bei euch ist. Und wie gesagt, bis am Dienstag. Ah ja, der